And welcome back to Foul Play, episode 38. That is Fantasy Overwatch League play. My name is HeebieGB, and I am joined here by veteran host A Smith and a new host, Tepoyama. Please introduce yourself, Tepoyama.
What's up, guys? It's Teppo, Teo, Tepoyama, any kind of combination, whatever you're most comfortable with. I'll even allow Tepojama sometimes, depending on how I'm feeling. But yeah, I'm just like another guy, like trying to make it, and
Just on that
no, so
fantasy
Another guy
podcast
trying to
grind.
make it.
I'm just
Alright.
I'm just on the grind, No, but I my background in terms of fantasy sports comes from basketball and football, where I did a bunch of like basketball fantasy content, and I'm nasty at fantasy football, even though I don't do content there. Got to keep those secrets to myself.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do some fantasy Overwatch stuff. I write for Winston's Lab here and there, and right now I'm writing for Bleacher Report, doing like weekly recaps over for the league.
Cool.
Yeah, I also work with the Overguard doing some content there and marketing. So
Sweet.
yeah, I'm around.
Yeah.
So you're a fellow meat sport crossover.
Oh yeah, I
Mm.
came from the meat and then I went plant-based.
Yeah.
That's exactly how it
Yeah.
goes.
Is that what we're calling esport? I think it's like the energy drink alternative to hamburgers. You know,
Yeah, no, I feel that.
the Red Bull version. Not healthy in any way. So we had a pretty exciting week of Overwatch last week.
Yep.
Some literal Titans
Mhm.
fell. Had some other teams coming on a really fun upswing. And when the parody puzzle flourishes, the fantasy points afloweth. And so we will be talking about all varieties of that. But to get us started, our first category is the leaders. We're talking about who scored extremely well last week. A Smith,
Hmm.
why don't you start on that support category?
All right, let's take it first to one of our everybody's favorite English support. That is the boombox. And by English, I mean from England, not just speaks the English. So Boombox put up 188.07. That is a first for supports in best. He only played one map or one game, and that's all he needed. He played more than one map, but only played one game. That's all he needed to get those points. He racked it up. Boombox has been a very solid player, but he's never really in the leaders that often. He's always like probably high end support 2, low end support 1. And it's good to see him step up and get a good week here.
Hmm.
The second one is the much better Boston support. That is Aim God. 159.5. That's third in support best. And he only played one game as well because for some reason they played Persia. And they finally realized, hey, Persia's not doing it for us. And Boston played Aim God. And they did much, much, much better. And they didn't get stomped. So that's what we really like to see. And I mean, I don't really like to see it. I mean, I would be okay if Boston gets stomped, but Robert Kraft and the slime. Anyways, moving on. Aim God, hopefully he's here to stay. Just for competitiveness in the league, I'd like to see it. So
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah, Teo, you wanna do the tanks?
Yeah, I'm happy to do the tanks, especially because my boy Fury popped off. So Fury just, we can call him a tank because that's his role. But last week he played everything. His Pharaoh was nasty, his Hanzo was nasty. He was just overall a monster. He scored 172 in best, which was number one amongst tanks, 309 in combined, which was number two. Um, and yeah, he was really just a maniac. Like he just I don't remember the last time a flex tank popped off like that, and I just like just watching it that he really passed the eye test.
Yeah.
And then the other kind of tank leader was a guy who's been really on the come up the past few weeks, despite his team struggles, and that's or inconsistencies, I guess, instead of struggles. And that's Finzi of the Eternal, who put up 152, which was second and best, and already like between 172 for Fury and 152 for Finzi, it's obvious that Fury really popped off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Yeah, so Finzi had 152. second in best, and 226 in combined, which was fourth. And then just another great performance from the guy. And it's good to see he's kind of like elevated himself into the top tier of tanks right now.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm a little sad about it because my first sleeper I ever picked was Finzi. Then he didn't do well at all the next week. So
Hmm.
I really wish I would have picked him last time. But moving on into the next category, we will talk about the DPS leaders this week. Number one overall for best game, scoring 187.35 points, is Color Hex. Dude can play anything, projectile, hit scan, well, at least anything in his hero pool, which is like 5 characters, but they span projectile and DPS and tank, I guess, if you include Zarya. Dude's really, really good at Pharah, especially at like one of Pharah's best way to score fantasy points is landing ultimates and doing so really well. It doesn't really matter if you die in this fantasy format. And he's one of the best at landing pretty high value Pharah ultimates. So that's going to net you a lot of fantasy points. The other DPS leader we had is Godsby. Got 164.97, so that's 4th place in the DPS category, but scored 315.56, which is first in overall. That is over all categories as well, not just the offense stat. Godsby was playing an unbelievably good game. Games of his life, if I would say, for these last week. And honestly, Spark is in their like peak of any time they've been playing, but Gosby was playing incredible. Tepa, you were telling me about how he was landing a grav inside of a Winston bubble that was already placed down to block trance healing. That is not Gushue doing that. I would say that's all
No,
Godsby.
that's nasty, just IQ, like in
Yeah,
the moment to just try and block healing away. And
that's
then he also had that moment hit the Zarya secondary fire onto a flying fall. And yeah, you don't usually think of the projectile Zarya as being the Pharah counter, but he pulled it off. Like his Zarya is so sick right now.
That's true. I mean, Carrie Underwood told Jesus to take the wheel, but right now Hong Zhao's telling Godspeed to take the wheel because that guy is unbelievable.
No.
Gotcha. Yeah,
That was
that's
not
the reference we need.
that is that might be worse than all of my dad jokes combined. Oh.
Oh man, if
Oh,
if
beautiful.
telling dad jokes was like the prereq for children, I would own an orphanage. It is on to the feeders category. A Smith, please start our feeders category.
Anything to stop you from going off this cliff that you were going. I don't know where we're going, but wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take the supports here. Hey, Kariv, 109.27. That was his best. And look, they're like, we can say one map didn't count because technically it didn't. However, it's a best. So in that we're going there, I mean, you can't say that's the problem because the other one, I mean, they're both 3-1s, and the other one counts just the same. So you're looking probably close to the same score here. It really has to do a lot with him being Ana, the way he plays Ana. We were talking about it a little bit earlier before, but his Ana play is more towards sleep darting and just taking people out of position instead of just straight damage and heals. And the way he's playing is helpful for his team. It's not helpful for our fantasy stats.
No.
He is no Izayaki here.
Sleep
he's
dart
kind
points
of-
win.
Yeah, right. It's a sad thing, but hey, one day we will get there. The other support is the support I alluded to in the feeders or in the leaders, and this man is Persia. 55.49. Yeah, he's averaging okay, they played 4 maps. So that was an average of yeah, 13, just over 13, almost 14 points per map. That was rough. Super rough. So I'm looking here and saying, you know what, Persia, just hit the bench. Don't ever come back again. You know what? We would trade you, but you're not worth it. We're probably gonna trade Aim God. You might play then, and who knows? I mean, it's Boston. Their piggy bank's bigger than their wallet. They like to save. That's what they do. They sell people and then stash it all in the bank and don't ever use it.
Mhm.
Oh,
I mean, they just don't use
Yeah.
it.
No,
yeah.
it's brutal. That performance for Persia, just for that support duo in general. Like, looking at it and combined, Persia and Alamau put up 95 points, which would have been less than Kareev did in his best game. So,
Yeah.
like, two supports combined scored less than a feeder.
Yeah.
In that, like that's insane.
Yeah. Map 1. Persia didn't have a kill.
Mm-hmm.
Not a kill. Didn't have an elim. No eliminate. He didn't even assist in a kill. Like that's how bad it was.
Man.
So it just is rough.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, quite rough. But even though they were so bad, they got more points collectively than all of Toronto Defiant. No, that's not quite true, but it's way closer
Not
than
quite.
you'd think.
Yeah.
Very close. Toronto rip. All right. So
Teoyama, why don't you take the tank feeders for us?
All right, yeah, will do. The first tank feeder is somewhat surprising because he's kind of built up a reputation as being one of the best main tanks in the game, and then it's not so surprising that he's a feeder because he is a main tank, and that's a super of the San Francisco Shock. It's kind of looking like at this point, if the Shock are sweeping people, or in general, if there's sweeps going to be happening, like you don't want players on that team, especially not their main tanks. And yeah, Super put up 83 points in best and 137 in combined, which just doesn't come out to be super hot. Oh my god,
you got there
I
again,
it
man.
it kills me. I can't help it. I like the word super, and I just
Yeah.
need him to change his name so I don't change the way I speak. That would be the ideal.
You know what? You're allowed to.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah,
I'll shoot him a
I'm
DM
gonna
real quick.
message him. Yeah.
You're allowed to make that joke
And
one
then
time, so
the
you're fine.
second tank feeder is pretty disappointing because he is a flex tank and he's been great kind of all stage, and that's a Void of the LA Gladiators, and kind of it goes hand in hand with the Gladiators disappointing week, where so Void only put up 88 points, and they played the Dragons, and you would have thought that that would be a much more competitive match, but they lost 3-1, and the Dragons kind of just had their way with them, and Void's play obviously suffered because of it. And it's kind of the Gladiators are in a weird spot right now, and it's hard to tell what's going to happen uh, with them, like when we're going to see that improvement. And now it seems like the LA Valiant have taken all of that kind of LosAngelino energy, and the Gladiators are suffering right now. And Void obviously is not performing to the level we've come to expect.
Mm-hmm.
LosAngelino energy. That is a nice terminology there.
Yeah, that could be their third team.
Los
There we
Angelino.
Yeah.
Los Angeles, Los Angelino.
All right, Hebe, why don't you take those DPS?
Great. I'd love to. Hey, guess what? Toronto sucked this week. So top of our feeder category.
So here we'll go. You got to say basically the Toronto fight. I mean that literally is the entire team there, right there. Boom.
Hey, am
the
I back?
whole problem. You are there.
Oh, he's back. Here we go.
I was talking about how bad the Toronto Defiant were.
Oh,
and
good. I came in at the right time. They suck.
In that, they were terrible.
Yeah.
Man. Dude, it's unreal. I'm 37, got 59.53 points. He was one of their higher point scorers. That's crazy. Toronto fed their brains out this week. In a alternate universe, I probably said that they prayed to God's crazy diva tweet, asking to help them win, and it did not work. In fact, it was a cruel twist of fate, and they lost terribly to the Charge. This isn't like exactly a competitive analysis kind of podcast. We're more just going to be talking about fantasy, but holy smokes, I would be terrified if I was a Toronto fan, and I don't see things turn around quickly. So our second DPS feeder we have, this is probably the closest we've ever come to like only having one feeder, because Happy slipped in here, got 120.73 points. not his best week by far. Like, this is easily one of his
Mhm.
slowest weeks, but that's because he wasn't playing as much Zarya. When you 4-0 stomp a team, there's not as many HP pools to kill, throw out
Yep.
to gain those damage stats. And Widowmaker sure takes all the fun away out of fantasy points when those eliminations are happening that fast. And everyone's playing tanks, so they come back super slow. So I am happy. Flexed, had himself a great week, but how dare he do that to us fantasy owners? I will be the first one to riot, and I think that he should have switched to a character that could pad his stats, but he did not do so, and I'm very disappointed.
Play 76, you fool.
Yeah, play 76.
And then, once again, we can just blame the Defiant for it because they got stomped 2-12 on map points, and they only scored a map point on one map, and that was Paris. So
Wow.
yeah, it's gonna be hard to get any fantasy points against a team that's just kind of bowing out so
That's true.
disgracefully.
Yeah.
So would you say Happy's performance did not make you happy?
Oh.
And I
yeah,
can't talk about
that's
orphanages.
Okay, you know what? I'll throw it in there.
All
Cut
right.
me off. You can take it off. Take it out of here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump out of the leaders and feeders category and just go to the matches we have upcoming this week. So, if you're looking for who you're starting on your roster, especially if you are playing in those combined leagues and you need those teams that play twice, those are as follows. You have the Houston Outlaws, the San Francisco Shock, the Los Angeles Valiant, the Los Angeles Gladiators, Toronto Defiant, London Spitfire, Chengdu Hunters, Seoul Dynasty, and the Hangzhou Spark. Pretty good lineup for teams playing twice. We got some good games coming. But the teams that only play once, if you are just playing in that best game and you're not too worried about it, we have the Philadelphia Fusion, Washington Justice, Dallas Fuel, Boston Uprising, Vancouver Titans, Paris Eternal, Shanghai Dragons, New York Excelsior, Guangzhou Charge, and the Florida Mayhem. And the Atlanta Reign are signing autographs in Atlanta as we speak and are not playing this upcoming week.
Yeah, that sounds
Beautiful.
About right.
Okay,
That
great.
that was the great riff there.
Yeah.
Man, what a great bit.
Nailed that.
You have taken Deathblow's spot. He is never coming back.
That's true. He has abandoned us to not. Anyway, for the potential 5 maps this upcoming week, those good fantasy points, those high cashing in fantasy games. I want A Smith to talk about one of his picks first.
Just one. I will take it. I'll take London versus San Francisco, the juiciest one here. This is the high-end Overwatch here. This is like the top tier teams. I would say San Francisco is really in the top 3, and then London's probably that 4 that could break into that group of top 3.
That's like the hottest take I've heard you have. But anyway,
I don't know,
continue.
man. I really think London's there.
All right.
I think they could be.
Okay.
When they're firing on all cylinders, they are a championship level team.
Yeah, agreed.
have to
Proven
get
by
there.
the one championship we've had. I
They didn't change anything, and they took New York. They gave New York everything they could.
Yep.
So it's very valid. This is that juicy match. This is the match that has potential. San Francisco's shown some cracks in their armor. Losing to Houston was kind of, well, okay, we're not even gonna say kind of. It was just embarrassing, and then they go and London, like I said, is playing better. They gave everything they got to New York. You could very much see this game doing the same, going that 5 maps, and that's kind of what I'm hoping. I mean, you could see a 3-1 with San Francisco. There's a world where that happens. There's a world where London beats San Francisco 3-1. It's not a world I live in, but it's a world.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's kind of my hot take for pick
Cool.
there. It's really not even that hot of a take. But
The cool thing is, if you own London players as well, last week kind of proved that guard won't be coming in over Bird Ring or something.
Yep.
So you can be fairly confident with the London like starting 6 roster. Quartermain and Nuss are the only like really questionable ones, but I mean you probably don't want to be playing a main support. So anyway, Teoyama, please take the map that you have decided to add with additional stats I've heard a rumor about, so I'm very
Yeah.
excited.
So mine is kind of the a bolder pick. It's not the super obvious five mapper just because both of these teams are kind of hard to gauge right now, and that's the Guangzhou Charge against the Shanghai Drag. I think like it's I think if you ask anybody about this game, like they'll either think it's a 3-1 for the Charge or a 3-1 for the Dragons. Likely on the Dragons side, since the Dragons have had such a good stage. But I just think right now both of these teams are playing really well. Um, Obviously, this past week was huge for the Charge, and the Dragons had a great win over the Gladiators. So this past week, we saw the Charge beat the Defiant. They just stomped them, uh,
Hmm.
and you know, 12-2 on map points is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
the Dragons just pretty much stomped the Gladiators. But this week, the Dragons lost 1-3 against the Valiant, and 2 weeks ago, the Charge lost 1-3 against the Valiant. And if you look at the map points there, the Valiant are obviously a great team. Like they're really on the come up. So against the Dragons on map points, the Valiant won 11-9, and against the Charge on map points, the Valiant won 11-8. So they're
Okay.
obviously, when they've played the same team, they've performed very similarly, and I think we can expect this game to go the distance just because both of them are such wild cards. So I think they match up pretty well. I like both of their flex supports. I like the fact that both of them can mess with the meta a little bit. Happy can go onto the Widowmaker. Shanghai can just decide not to play a flex tank for a bit.
Mhm.
Um, or play one of their three flex tanks if they decide to.
Right.
I think this is just like a sneaky, fun pick for a five mapper, and I think it'll be a really good game of Overwatch to watch.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be an exciting game. I don't think I
Hmm.
have as much faith as it being a really high point getting map for it.
Yeah.
My question about that is who does Charge play for their DPS? Does Eileen not come out, or does Nero keep playing the 2 CP like he has?
I
Or
think I think they keep going with that kind of weird setup where Happy is the mainstay because
yes,
he's a
yes.
beast, and then I like the way they swap around Nero here and there because like if he comes in just to play Junkrat a bit, like on Paris against against the Defiant, like he came out like he had an easy 3K tire. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
been he's been a really fun kind of DPS sub, and he's been very successful when he subbed in, even though in his debut he said he was super nervous and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they keep flexing around that second DPS. While and the Dragons are sort of similar, where they have DM who feels like the DPS mainstay, and then Ding can sub out here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to play most of the time. His Pharah is just bonkers, and his Sombra obviously is too. So yeah, I think they're both kind of in a fun, kind of similar spot.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, friggin' Junkrat looking like a pretty solid counter to Sombra is like a pretty
Yep.
exciting place to be in the meta, seeing as how much Sombra we've seen. So,
Hmm.
Very
Smith,
true.
you said you had two potential map fives, so why don't you take the second one so I don't
do.
steal the one you want?
Okay, I'm gonna go here with Philly versus Boston. I really like that it happened before this stage already, and
Mm-hmm.
so when you look at it, you're like, "Hey, how did they do the last time they played?" Okay, well they played this stage and it was a 2-1, so that very well could have easily have gone to five maps there. The same map differential as a five mapper. However, you don't get that juicy fifth map, and that's what we're looking for. And
Mm-hmm.
and and as long as Boston plays Aim God, I like it. I think
Cool.
I think we are going to five there. If they play Persia, well, then you know what? If they play Persia, I just want Philly to 4-0 them, just to
Yeah.
prove a point.
Yeah, say they'll drop into the next category that we're gonna move on to after this.
Yeah,
If they play
exactly.
Persia. Uh,
Exactly. If they play Persia, this is all depending on Boston playing Aim God. Granted, they played Aim God and they still went 2-1, or they played Persia and still went 2-1 against Philly. So you never know.
cool. All right, I am going to take our fourth option for potential 5-mapper, and that is Valiant versus the Spark. This is easily match of the week for me. I'm so excited.
Okay.
Two teams that are like skyrocketing in terms of power
Mhm,
rankings. Like
mhm.
this is, it's so exciting to watch these teams. I mean, Gosby having performance of his life last week. Kareev doing the exact same thing. I would say those sleep darts were just out of this world. Very exciting game to watch. Fact versus Gooshway will be sweet. I love the storylines of like main tank versus main tank in this season. I think it's just like
Mhm.
been so clearly shown in this meta of like who is the superior main tank. As before, it was just like, all right, which Winston doesn't die when he dives. So this has been like really fun to watch. So I'm excited for that match. And both of these teams are like completely capable of playing that Sombra like level of play, but have pretty decent off tanks to come in if they want to just go back to traditional 3-3. So
Mhm.
I think this will be like a real test of what these teams are going to rely on more. Is one of these teams way more of a Sombra team, or are they like, no, our 3-3 is pretty good and we can beat anyone at it? So it's very much a two like just up and comers of stage 3 button heads. I'm very excited. um
Yep.
A
That's
Smith,
it's a sick matchup.
yeah, it'll be
Yep.
good. A Smith, never mind. Teoyama, do you want to do you want to just run
Rip.
through all three of our potential oofs real quick and just
All right.
go over the matches that we think will score
If
zero
A
fantasy
Smith
points?
will allow me,
Right.
then I'm happy to do it.
Fine. You know what? It's to be fair, it's very obvious.
All
Very,
right.
very obvious.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and take it.
All right,
Take
here
it.
we go. Number 1, NYXL versus Dallas.
Hmm.
Dallas looks really bad right now.
Dallas
NYXL
bad.
looks really good right now. Dallas bad,
Mhm.
NYXL good. Pretty
You do the
obvious here.
math. Yeah.
There we go. Number 2, San Francisco versus Chengdu. Chengdu fun, San Francisco good. Feels fairly obvious.
Hmm.
Number 3, Florida versus Hangzhou. Florida is 1-0 in their past one game, but
Whoa!
it's still
that hot take. Watch
but it's
out.
They're
still
100% in their last
Florida.
week.
Zephyr may have outscored a bunch of other players last week, but I don't know if he has any scrim bucks left to cash.
Dude,
So
that
feels
Bastion
pretty
pick on
obvious.
Gibraltar, that was
Why
man,
wa-
all those
amazing.
I
points.
have a serious question. Why wasn't
Yeah.
Zephyr in the leaders? The only time we'll ever
he
get
should
him
have been.
leaders, he should have been just for
Because
the
he still only had 92 points, so it
And
wasn't that great.
I think we all still don't trust him. We saw
Yeah.
it in front of our eyes, and we're all like, nah, it can't be
But, yeah.
real.
That's not really happening.
Yeah.
if But Florida did come out with a 5 DPS comp when they got rolled in their first match last week, and that's kind of like the bright spot of my life. So
Okay,
you
well,
know,
glad we
I
found it.
kind of I'm gonna try to send them some energy, but I still think it's a major oof.
Okay, fair.
I'll allow it.
Alrighty. Let's do our last category of this evening. Thank you for spending it with us, by the way. Sleepers of the week. These are our picks that we think could net you some real good fantasy points this week. That maybe is on the waiver wire. Maybe you just have them on your roster that you're not playing. I
They're
think these would be
probably
a
on the
pretty decent
waiver
option.
wire.
Yeah, we've put some pretty like coma level sleepers. Not the actual player Coma, he's fine. But well, actually he is a
don't pick
sleeper.
him.
Don't pick Coma. I without a doubt picked a worse pick than Coma this week.
You did.
All right.
You did.
But A Smith, it is your turn for supports because Kyo scored more than Boink. Go figure, a flex support scored more than a main support. Wow.
All right. To be fair, I think we're done. I think we need to like cancel picking Kaio every time. We pick him
Yeah.
I pick him almost every other week, and it's partially because I'm just in love with Chinese.
Okay.
Namaste. That's not Chinese.
No,
Anyways, my sister's Chinese. That's why I'm in love with him. Just in case you didn't know.
cool.
All right, it's very Game of Thronesy, but I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I
all
guess
right.
we'll allow it.
Anyways, all right. So Quartermain is my pick here. This is Boomer Bust, because he's either
Yep.
playing or he's not, and they looked better when he was. So I venture to say, here's to hoping Nuss wasn't just like sick this week, but I liked watching Quartermain play with London this week, and with their potential matches with Valiant and San Francisco. Even if he doesn't play one of the matches, if he plays a full one of the other one, I still think he's got high potential to on best to actually do pretty decent, especially when you're compared to the scrubs that they picked.
True.
So, and he's definitely on the waiver wire. I can almost 100% guarantee you he's like on 100%
Yep.
of the waiver wire.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Who's got that around? Yeah. Okay. My sleeper of the week is going to be Aid. From that fabled Toronto Defiant team.
Oh my god.
I got AIDS from that.
Yeah. Man.
Fair.
Can you imagine if they all just used their real names? Then we wouldn't have to make any of these terrible jokes.
Would we actually be able to pronounce them is the real question.
I don't know.
Yeah, it might be tough.
There's some tough players to pronounce in meat sports, but they do it just fine.
Meat sports.
All right. Aid, he's on the comeback. Toronto Defiant, they're fully rubber banding it. Last week was them shaking off the rust. This is top tier Toronto Defiant. I'm talking. This is grand finals Toronto Defiant. There you are. Aid is gonna pop off. Just watch. Just gonna flex on a Widowmaker.
I feel that. I'm into it.
Okay, good.
He's gonna be the fury of some main supports. He's just
Yeah.
gonna flex onto every role.
Yes, please. He's gonna play Reaper.
All
He's
right.
Reaper, please.
Whew, that'd be beautiful.
All right.
All right.
Tempo, your
So
first
my
one.
my first my first sleeper ever, my first support sleeper ever. And I'm going weird with it because I wanted to try and sneak in a flex support, right? And it's highly of the Seoul Dynasty. Ryo Jae-hong may be one of the best flex supports in the league, but the Seoul Dynasty are a weird team and they play two rosters.
Okay.
So my hope, and if it works out, he's gonna kill your guys. It's gonna be great. He's gonna have way more points. If they play Ryu Jae-hong for one game, so they play the Eternal and the Hunters,
Okay.
who are both inconsistent, weird teams. So each of those games, I think, has some map 5 potential.
Or just B
so-
team potential. So I see what you mean. here.
Yeah, so like it's
Yeah.
very possible 2 games in play that they do Ryu Jae-hong for one game and Hailey for another game. And if he gets an entire game to himself, he's going to be just a sneaky kind of waiver kind of guy and
Okay.
a major sleeper. Because he's shown when he plays, he's passed the eye test for sure.
Yeah.
And so if it's just a matter of playing time for him.
Hey,
Sure.
Ryu J Sexy needs to rest those wrists,
Yeah,
ice the
100%.
wrist, take
Th-
some
those
take some
lights-
miles off.
those lights are bad for his hair, so it's
Oh,
good for him to
that's-
take some time and like
Yeah.
sit in the back room,
Mhm.
You let Hailey take some of that those bright lights.
Yep, you got to. All right. Well, thanks. Since I won, I picked Gamsu, while Heebie-Jeebie over here picked Fact Fiction.
Missing
I'm gonna
a map. Missing a map.
Does it really matter?
I like to believe so. Yeah.
And it's best format, so it's like,
Yeah.
Anyways,
Up for
all
debate.
right. Sure. I mean, okay. All right, so I'm gonna take a good main tank here. I'm taking Fusions from Boston. They're playing Philly this week. I like that matchup. When Fusions plays well, he actually gets a decent amount of fantasy points. I actually think he did pretty well this week, fantasy wise. So he did go to map 5. So if they can push that Philly game to a 5 mapper, I like Fusion's chances to score top among main tanks and beat some of the lower end flex tanks. So
All right.
Fusions for the win.
Okay.
I dig it.
All right, Teppo.
All right, so mine, continuing the trend of trying to get in a flex over main, is the Elsa of the Chengdu Hunt. I think the Frozen Maestro, inspired by the hit film, the hit cinematic masterpiece. I think Elsa is an underrated flex tank, and I think the Hunters, they're playing the Shock and the Dynasty, and I don't think it's going to work out against the Shock. But I do think the game against the Dynasty has the potential to go 5 maps, in which case Elsa could be a great scorer, especially since he seems to be getting the majority of the playing time consistently.
Yeah,
Fair.
that
Fair.
makes sense.
Notably, Elsa scored less points than Rio this week.
Notably.
That's fair. Yep, I'll take that. That's pretty notable. But yeah, so I'm banking on the people sleeping on him because of that stat right there.
That's fair. I mean, Elsa's probably in the waiver wire.
Yeah,
I'd venture to say he's there.
I'm pretty sure him and Sansam are the only flex tanks on fire.
Sansa.
All right. Okay. Let me tell you about my sleeper pick of the week for the tank category. It will be Ameng. And to do so, let me paint a little picture for you, a story. Ameng. He's sitting in his room at probably his team house, opening up his phone and watching the Overwatch League stream. And all of a sudden, he sees these main tanks picking this round ball-shaped character. The audacity for these other players to think that they can even come close to the pure dominance that he has upon this hero. Ameng is coming to prove that he is on top and that no one else can play a small hamster with a very large ball better than he can. Ameng is going to score you mad points this week, and if you don't pick Ameng up, then you're a communist. So DPS categories.
That was it.
Okay,
All right. Yep.
Teo, you are giving it. You are picking the first one for the DPS category.
Here we go. Yeah, because I could not have won or lost. I like it. I'm gonna go with Blase. I was kind of torn on it because it's true that he had a great performance last week thanks to playing 5 maps. But I think generally the Uprising are all kind of sleepers despite last week. And I think Blase just really showed. I mean, well, first off, like mechanically, he had a great week. You know, he really shined on everything he played. But then from like a leadership standpoint, like I didn't know this guy was so like calm and collected when he had the post game interview and he was talking about, you know, how he just told everybody to remain calm and like, you know, just stick to their guns and etc. I was like, okay, this guy's got a little bit of mojo to him, you know. And this week they're gonna play the Fusion. They only play one game, which makes me nervous, but I'm gonna bank on that one game against the Fusion being a competitive one, and I think he'll put up a ton of points.
Yeah, that's a good pick. The only concern I have about Blase, sorry, last tangent, I promise. But the only concern I have for him is that, I mean, they showcased like his actual shot calling, like on the broadcast team, like they were showing him literally saying it, like, man, if I'm Fusion, I'm clicking on Blase's head first. Like I am eliminating the calm one and letting the actual rage monster Fusions be the one doing the calls after that.
Alternatively, like if you kill him, that gives him about, what's the respawn time, like 6 to 8 seconds, something like that. You give him time to just focus on comms, you know.
Yeah,
so maybe that's a bad call. Maybe it's better to like keep him alive so that he has to focus on aiming instead of just giving out great comms.
Yeah, Doomfist aiming. Oh my god.
I'm gonna message that to Fusion to let them know, like, hey, keep him alive so it's difficult to make his comms.
We got Hayes on speed dial.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we got all these kinds of connections. Okay.
Welcome to the High Noon Podcast Network, guys.
Yeah, the real, you know, the special something, the secret sauce of Overwatch podcasts. Okay. For my DPS pick of Sleeper of the Week, I am picking Surefour. I promise you it's not because he is my Canadian brethren.
Bias.
Yeah, I'm 100% biased 100% of the time, so I'm picking Surefour. I think there's a good chance that Gladiators switch to a Sombra meta, and maybe 50-50. You know what? I think Surefour is going to score a lot of points, and I don't have any good reasons for it. A-Smith, would you like to say your DPS category?
Sure, I will take the better Boston DPS. That is Color Hex.
How on earth does this count as a sleeper?
The Kiwi scores points, and you agreed to it. That's the way it is.
He scores good points every
Boston.
single
It's
week.
Boston.
So
Does he score every single week? To be fair, he's like part of Boston, and I still sleep on Keller Hicks. I'm like, do I start? I don't know.
All right. Fine. Why?
Like when we're thinking why start him, because he scores points and lots of them. Look, he was
well.
number 1 this week, and it's no coincidence. The Kiwi man, he's gonna lead Team New Zealand to World Cup glory one day. Maybe 50 years from now, but it will happen.
Grandfather Color
70-year-old Color Hex.
Yeah.
Click that.
I've been playing Overwatch 6 since I
Yeah.
was 54.
That'll be enough time for Trill to get the next experience off.
Oh no.
Nice.
Yep.
Poor Trill.
Yes.
Trill.
Sorry,
Ripperino.
pal.
So that's gonna do it. I'm gonna
Mhm.
kick all of your tails, every single one. This it's in the bag for me, guys. I don't know why you let me pick these things.
Okay, I kind of agree with you, but only because Teo and I threw on the support category. Okay.
No, Hiley's gonna get
Actually,
a full game, and
we
Hiley's
all
gonna
three
pop
through.
off.
Quartermain, come on, man, that's super risky.
Yeah.
Man, do you think people actually listen to this podcast for advice? Because
That's
we
exactly
are
why they
coming in
listen.
short on this topic. All
Okay,
right.
on
it's
sleepers,
gonna be
you
hot.
guys are definitely on your waiver. Almost
Yeah.
certain.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe not the DPS. They Surefor might be still on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
But you have absolutely zero reason to pick him.
I own
So-
Color Hex in a lot of in a lot of leagues actually.
It's true. You were the one not sleeping on him.
It's true. Big
So,
brain.
Big brain, man. All right, well, that was this is all we got this week. It's been
Mhm.
absolutely amazing. Teppo, Yama, Teo, everything else we want to call you, El Diablo. Look, man, it's been awesome. I think it's safe to say, Hebe, we may have our third co-host here.
Yeah, if I had
Oh
a
my God.
bottle, I'd pop it.
So
But yeah, welcome to
we
the
have
crew.
champagne here.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
look, I hope to expect to see Teppo on several more podcasts here. It's gonna be fun.
I dig it.
Yep. So Hebe?
Fans, make sure that so we know you loved us, so make sure you tweet at both Deathblow and the Blevins, tell them how much the show sucked when it was just them, and bring the praise for the new blood. Tell us how good we were. Make sure you tweet at us. My Twitter is at Josh the Geek. A Smith, I'm pretty sure yours is at ASmithOW.
It's underscore OW.
Underscore OW.
Underscore OW.
Okay, and Teo, do you have Twitter that you want to plug?
Yeah, it's at Tepoyama, spelled Tepo, Tepojama.
Awesome, cool, and then
Teppo Jamas.
yeah.
Tepo Gemmas, yep. Nighttime ready.
There we go.
All right, awesome. So thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with a Homestead episode. So a bit of a no. It won't be. It'll be covering this week, but we'll prep you for the Homestead
We'll
weekend.
talk
All
about
that
the
entails.
Homestead.
So, buckle up and enjoy this league when the Valiant and Mayhem are good? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
All right. See you guys next week. Bye bye.